John Travolta is a name that resonates with iconic memories. The man who danced into our hearts, captivated us with his roles, and made us believe in the power of second chances. From a young age, John was driven by the teachings of his mother, Helen Cecilia Burke, who believed that talent was the true equalizer in life. Growing up in the working-class neighborhood of Englewood, New Jersey, John's life was filled with challenges. His father, Salvatore, worked hard to make ends meet by selling tires, while his mother carried the artistic dreams of her youth, which she passed on to her son. Though the Travolta family struggled financially, they had the greatest wealth, vision. Helen's faith in John's potential would shape the course of his life, setting him on a path where he would either soar or crash. The leap of faith, dropping out to follow a dream. At just 16 years old, John Travolta stood at a crucial crossroads. He could continue down the path of conventionality, finish high school, and follow a predictable, safe life, or he could risk everything and chase his dreams of becoming an actor. It was his mother's words, "You either make it or you become a cautionary tale," that fueled his decision. With their blessing, he dropped out of high school, entering the unpredictable world of show business. In New York City, with only enough money to survive a week, John faced rejection after rejection. Yet, he persisted, knowing that giving up would mean betraying his mother's faith in him. He worked tirelessly, from minor roles in Broadway shows to supporting parts in touring productions, always moving forward, determined to succeed. Early struggles, the road less traveled. Travolta's early years were not glamorous. He spent countless hours working odd jobs, distributing flyers in harsh winters, lugging heavy equipment for theater productions, and singing for nearly invisible audiences. His dreams felt impossibly far, and the struggle wore him down. Yet, he refused to give up. The dream was too important, and the pressure to succeed was immense, especially with his mother's words echoing in his mind. When 1975 rolled around, everything changed. Welcome Back, Kotter, the television sitcom, offered him the role of Vinnie Barbarino, a charming but goofy high school student. At 21, he became an overnight sensation. The fame he'd worked for so long to achieve was finally within his grasp. But fame would come with both its rewards and its burdens. Stardom and heartbreak. Diana Hyland's tragic death. At the height of his fame, John's life would take a tragic turn. In 1976, while filming The Boy in the Plastic Bubble, he met Diana Hyland, his co-star. The two fell deeply in love, despite their 18-year age difference. Diana, a beautiful, strong woman, had undergone a mastectomy in a desperate fight against cancer. By the time they met, her illness had already begun to spread. The two were inseparable, and John was ready to begin a life with her, planning to move in together after completing Saturday Night Fever. But fate had other plans. Just as John's career skyrocketed, his world collapsed when Diana passed away in his arms on March 27, 1977. She was only 41. For John, this loss would mark the beginning of a lifetime of grief, one that would shape his life, his work, and his emotional landscape for years to come. A struggle with fame, the price of stardom. In the years following Diana's death, John's career continued to flourish. Saturday Night Fever made him a cultural icon, and Grease cemented his place in Hollywood history. His career reached new heights, with his performances in Urban Cowboy and Two of a Kind keeping him in the public eye. However, the weight of his grief over Diana's death was ever present. Fame demanded that he smile, dance, and perform with energy, even when his heart was breaking. John became a master at hiding his pain behind the brightness of his roles. Yet, despite the world's expectations, he struggled with his own sense of identity. Fame came at a price, and for John, that price was his emotional well-being. As the 1980s arrived, John faced an entirely new challenge: the brutal collapse of his career. The fall. Hollywood's relentless rejection. The 1980s were a cruel decade for John Travolta. His career, which once seemed destined for greatness, began to falter. Two of a Kind, 1983, and Staying Alive, 1983, the much-anticipated sequel to Saturday Night Fever, underperformed at the box office. Reviews were savage, and critics began to turn against him. Roles that could have defined his career went to other actors, including Richard Gere and Tom Hanks. In the mid-1980s, John's name was no longer mentioned in the same breath as Hollywood's top stars. The films he starred in were ignored, and by the end of the decade, John was relegated to the status of a forgotten relic. He had become a cautionary tale about the dangers of fame, and the industry seemed to have forgotten the man who once embodied the energy of an entire generation. A Second Chance, Pulp Fiction, and the resurrection of a legend. After years of struggle, John's career was miraculously revived in 1994 by Quentin Tarantino. The director cast him in Pulp Fiction as Vincent Vega, a heroin-addicted hitman, a role that seemed far removed from the lovable, dancing heartthrob audiences had once adored. John hesitated, unsure of whether he could pull off such a dramatic transformation. But when he finally agreed, the world was reminded of the magic that made John Travolta a star. His performance was nothing short of electrifying. His dance with Uma Thurman became iconic, and his chemistry with Samuel L. Jackson was undeniable. Pulp Fiction won the Palme d'Or at Cannes, and John earned his second Academy Award nomination. The resurrection of his career was nothing short of extraordinary, and John was once again the star he had been in the late 70s. Family and loss, the tragedy of Jett Travolta. In 1991, John married actress Kelly Preston. Together, they had 3 children, Jett, Ella, and Benjamin. Yet, the shadow of grief that had haunted John for years would return when their son Jett, who suffered from autism and seizures, passed away unexpectedly in January 2009 at the age of 16. John was devastated. He had already lost Diana to cancer, and now his son, his flesh and blood, was gone. The grief was unbearable, and John and Kelly struggled to come to terms with the loss of their son. A year later, their daughter Benjamin was born, offering a glimmer of hope in the aftermath of their sorrow. But life had more tragedies in store for John. In 2020, Kelly Preston succumbed to breast cancer, dying at the age of 57. The loss was overwhelming, and the pattern of grief that had haunted John for decades seemed too cruel to be coincidence. A new beginning, John's quiet life in Florida. Now, at 70, John Travolta lives a quieter life in Ocala, Florida, where he resides with his son Benjamin. His career has slowed considerably, and his recent films have earned little at the box office. Once a fixture in Hollywood, John is now largely forgotten by the industry that once worshipped him. Yet, in many ways, his greatest achievement is not his wealth or fame, but his endurance. He has survived loss after loss, navigating the depths of grief while still remaining present for his children. John's life is a testament to the power of survival, love, and resilience. Despite the fading applause and the quiet theaters, John Travolta's legacy is not just defined by his roles, but by the strength it took to endure everything life threw his way. The legacy of John Travolta, a man who danced through the storm. John Travolta's life teaches us that survival is the true triumph. He has faced unimaginable loss and yet continues to move forward, not because it is easy, but because it is necessary. His career may have ebbed and flowed, but the love he gave, the joy he brought, and the resilience he showed are what truly define his legacy. From a struggling teenager in New Jersey to a Hollywood legend, John Travolta's story is one of endurance in the face of adversity. Despite all the losses, he has continued to live, to love, and to dance. As we reflect on his journey, we are reminded that it is not fame or fortune that defines us, but our ability to keep going even when the music stops. John Travolta's life is a reminder to all of us that, no matter the obstacles, we can find the strength to survive and to keep moving forward.